This is Perspectivas Latinas, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. In 1978, Lifespan was born to aid victims of domestic violence, and since then they have worked to provide counseling, criminal court advocacy, and an array of services to help eradicate domestic violence. Our guests today are here to talk about Lifespan's efforts and work in the community. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out today. Let's start by talking about you individually and what you do at the organization. Megan, please.
Yes, I'm Megan Blatt. I'm a staff attorney at Lifespan. I've been at Lifespan for about 4 years. I work with survivors of domestic violence to do things like divorces, orders of protection, and parentage cases. So I work in the domestic relations part of Lifespan.
Great. Olivia?
Hi, I am a staff attorney in the Immigration Project. I've been there for about a little over 2 years now, and I work primarily with individuals who are interested in applying for benefits and protection under the immigration laws.
Okay. And finally,
my name is Pinky Ring. My real name is Marisol Velez. And
how do you want me to refer to you during the show?
Pinky Ring is fine.
Okay.
And I am new to Lifespan. I actually wrote a song about sexual abuse, so I work with Lifespan to create more awareness on the topic through hip hop.
Okay. So, as I said in our opening, you've been around since 1978. Can you tell me a little more about the history and the development, please, of the organization? And then we'll get into the services and things you do now.
Lifespan started out as a grassroots organization with women in the area. We have an office in Des Plaines that has our counseling office. We also have our downtown office. We're in many different courthouses. We have people at 555 West Harrison working with the TAC program. And
what's the TAC program?
The TAC program is the Targeted Abuser Call. Okay. So the state's attorney selects the few cases that day with the most serious abuse or the most dangerous abusers, and the Lifespan employees sit with them and discuss their legal options and give them some advice about the criminal system.
Okay, and you said that this was a grassroots organization when it first started.
With social workers at first, and then it developed with attorneys, and that's when we developed our legal office.
Okay.
And we've added services ever since.
So you have a counseling office in Des Plaines?
Correct, but our counselors also do come to the downtown office.
Okay, and where are you located downtown, in downtown Chicago?
We're at 70 East Lake Street at Lake and between Michigan and Wabash.
Okay, and you provide all the services there, or?
We provide most of our services there. We do also have, like I said, counseling in Des Plaines, but in the downtown office we have a lot of our attorneys. We do have attorneys in Des Plaines, our immigration projects in the downtown office, as well as our CNCO sexual assault paralegal. Okay,
and during this, I mean, it's over 30 years now, Lifespan obviously has transformed from that grassroots organization into a very formal organization with its offices in 2 places and services throughout the metro area?
Correct. We serve people all over Cook County. We're in several different courthouses, the Daly Center, Maywood, Bridgeview, Skokie, and we have services in Spanish, Polish, and we also use the domestic violence hotline for translation for other languages for our clients.
What other languages do you translate into?
We have a variety of clients from South Asia, from Europe, from Africa, from Latin America. So we use the language line a lot, and our clients can be from, not just from Cook County in the terms of the Immigration Project, because immigration law is federal law and the office in the area is in Chicago, but there's no jurisdiction in the sense, in the same way as with domestic violence court or domestic law or courts. So I'm able to assist individuals in other counties and even further away when we can.
Okay, I think a lot of times, and certainly we're in the show Perspectivas Latinas, but I think a lot of times people have the perception that the immigration issue, and especially people dealing with other issues that tie into them, such as domestic violence and having to navigate through that, that it's mainly a Latino problem. But from what I'm hearing from you, it's not.
Correct.
Could you tell me more about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, we see, domestic violence doesn't discriminate based on race or nationality, and so we see clients from all over the world who find our services and want to be able to, be protected and receive the benefits under immigration law that is available to them. So we're able to utilize resources in our area who can help. We work a lot with agencies in the area who specialize, for example, in working with South Asian women, for example, or Asian women. And so we reach out to those individuals to help us to better understand their cultures and to be able to work better with them.
Could you tell me the names of some of those organizations you reach out to and
Sure.
connect with, please?
So Abnagar, for example, is one organization. Hamdard is also another one. Can Win is another. And of course, a lot of Latino organizations in the area as well, like Mujeres Latinas and Latinos Progresando, various organizations in the area that we connect with and work with.
Okay. And a person who's living under, unfortunately, domestic violence or suffering through that, and may not have papers to be in this country, what options do they have? Because that's a lot of those people live in fear,
Right.
And especially women with children. They're like, what's going to happen if something happens? If I report this, are the police going to take me away? I'm sure it's a huge concern.
Yeah, it is, and I think that a lot of times that is what keeps victims or survivors in that realm. But immigration law provides that individuals who have been victims of certain crimes, which includes domestic violence and sexual assault, can apply for protection that will allow them to be here temporarily and then eventually apply for permanent residence. And so the thing is that they have to show that they cooperated with law enforcement. And that law came into place in order to assist these individuals who were basically living in the shadows and afraid to come forward, but also to assist law enforcement in enforcing the laws and to having witnesses available and people to actually help them to fight crimes. The other piece is under the Violence Against Women Act, and so that's for individuals who are married to U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents who have been abusive to them. And so we see a lot of cases in which individuals may meet someone abroad and bring them to the U.S. to get married, and then they're here completely by themselves and are abused and have nowhere to turn. But the law says that they can apply for the benefits on their own, even if their spouse didn't do so for them.
Wow. And how do you help, because they are families, how do you help children in those situations? How do you help them legally and step in there and provide some kind of aid or comfort to them?
Well, a lot of our clients, at least in the Immigration Project, can include their children. There are certain age restrictions, but for the most part, we're able to help not just the individual coming to our offices, but also her entire family, children who are here and abroad.
And abroad as well.
And abroad, right.
You want to tell me more about that?
And then in the domestic relations part of Lifespan, we're able to file orders of protection that can name the children as protected parties.
Okay.
And then in divorces, we can, fight and empower our clients to get their children to be safe, which might mean supervised visitation or some type of counseling for the children, a therapeutic visitation with the abuser. And Lifespan provides child counseling at our Displays office, as well as teen outreach.
Teen outreach. Oh, tell me more about that, please.
So we have social workers who go out to the local high schools and talk about dating violence and safety and sort of explaining power and control at a younger age so people can identify what is safe in relationships and what's not.
Okay. And Pinky, during our conversation before the show, and you rap. We'll listen to one of your rap pieces in a little bit. You speak about that issue of, I guess, teen domestic violence or teen dating violence. Tell me about. You don't have to get into detail, obviously, on something so personal, but tell me how you came through that and how art has helped you, please.
Well, I'm actually a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and it happened in the church by two different men, and so that affected my life, in a very, very grand way where, looking back, I realized a lot of the mistakes I made was because of that situation, and it took me until I was 27 years old to finally go to therapy. and when I went to therapy, I felt very empowered to start speaking about it, because a lot of young people, and especially in Latino communities, it's a subject that isn't spoken of. You're not supposed to talk about it, and then in the church, you're not supposed to talk about the church. So for me to have been able to unpack that at such a later time in my life, I realized how much help it would have been had I done that earlier and in my teenage years, which is why the young people that I reach, my audience is mostly teenagers. That's why I decided to write the song about my experience with sexual abuse, so that they could feel empowered and feel like they had an advocate for them in the hip hop community, because there are no rappers talking about that. So I decided to put that song out, and I teamed up with Lifespan so that I can give resources to these young people to find therapy, so that they didn't have to go through a lot of the things that I did when I was younger, still trying to understand what happened to me.
So you were sexually abused as a child, and you said that affected you as a teenager, and who you dated, and you finally said you unpacked it when you were 27.
Yeah.
What in therapy or in your experience helped you come through that recovery and find a place where you could speak and heal?
I think it was just having a safe space to talk about it, and having someone who listened without judgment. I told, partners, maybe one or two, but I never told my family. I never told
your
anyone,
family?
no. So when I went to therapy, it gave me the courage and the words to understand what happened, that it wasn't my fault, that it did in fact happen, that I was believed. And that gave me the courage to then, before I released the song Little Hearts that we'll be showing, I was able to tell my mother and my father and my sister, and they were absolutely supportive. And that's sometimes is not the case. Once I released that song, I had a lot of young people reach out to me and say, I told my parents and they didn't believe me. And which is why for me, going to therapy first was very important, because I had someone who was unbiased and absolutely believed me and helped me get through it, so that I could find the words to say, put it in song, and then help young people, so that even if anyone, is not believing them, I can say, I believe you and I'm with you and we can get through this. And you're not a product of your past. You can get past that. Right.
And you said there was no judgment in therapy, and that helped you finally tell your parents, right?
Yeah.
How did your parents react to that?
My mother was heartbroken. She was absolutely heartbroken and didn't know what to do or say. So that was difficult for me to see my mother cry. My father reacted a little differently. At first it was, okay, you just need to get over it, it's going to be, and I was very upset about that, but when I talked to some of my friends, they said, well, imagine what it's like for a father to hear something like that about his little girl. He didn't know how to react. So he actually, the next day I went home and opened my book bag, and he left a note in my book bag. It was in Spanglish, so it was so cute. And, he's just like, I'm sorry for the way I reacted. I don't think you know what it was like for me to hear that, and I couldn't sleep, and I'm really sorry, and I believe you, and, I want you to be okay, and just know you're my little girl and you're beautiful, and I'm so proud of you and what you're doing and the fact that you're releasing this song. So that for me, my dad is not very verbal, but for him writing that down and his bad spelling and his Spanglish, I cried, because I realized that, it wasn't my place to judge the way he reacted. It hurt me, but then we moved past that, and then the next day he finally gave me the hug that I really needed, and we cried together. It was beautiful.
Wow. And especially for young people who have a hard time speaking or having that voice, this program you have for teens actually helps them find a place or a space for this?
So I'm an attorney and I'm speaking for the counselors, but I believe that the counselors go to the schools and give them information about what is a healthy relationship, what's not healthy, and then obviously gives them information to get counseling. If
so you have workshops?
Correct.
Okay. Workshops, and are the referrals to counseling then?
Correct.
Okay. Since we're on this topic and we just heard a big part of your story, Pinky, we're gonna just take some time right now in the show and watch your piece. What's before we watch it though, tell us about it and how you what inspired it and what inspires you to write about this in general.
The song is called Little Hearts, and I battled with the title, and and I even battled with writing it. It took me a really long time to write, but it's called Little Hearts because for me, you know, being that it happened to me as a child, it was the first time that I got my heart broken, you know, and so I call it Little Hearts, plural, because there's so many young people out there that are going through this, and then women who still haven't unpacked it or talked about it. I've heard from so many women after releasing the song that they haven't told anybody yet, and they feel a little bit empowered to, you know, try to talk about it. And some people started talking about it and putting it on their Facebook statuses. So the solidarity, it was just amazingly beautiful. So the song is called Little Hearts, and again, it's my experience with childhood sexual abuse, but it's also a collective experience.
A collective experience. Okay, we'll take a look at that right now.
Do you know what it's like to be alone? To face all your problems and to solve them on your own. To date all the wrong ones cause a grown man stole your throne and you were just a little girl, little heart turned into stone. On. You don't like a soldier, we march, blaming ourselves with our souls ripped apart, hating yourself because he gripped on your body. He wasn't sorry, he didn't apologize. Now hatred is spewed in your eyes. They talking like she's so angry, why? Not knowing the reason you find it hard breathing is because your being is crying inside. And all that you wanted was love. Idea of relationships dripped in the mud of a man who couldn't keep his hands to himself in the pews of a church, and that's all you think of. There's no messages sent from above. There's no olive branch and there's no dove. There's no angels to save you, no peace to claim you, no love can tame you this time. Maybe you'll try suicide, Tylenol, alcohol, sleep by your side. She just can't take it, she's dying inside, trying to find a reason and rhyme. She can't help but the crowd of time. Baby girl learned to be woman at 9. Mama and daddy would swear she was fine, swear she was lying, swear she was lying. And they didn't believe her, men that deceived her, tore her and beat her. Breakfast, no breather, no one to teach her. Love is like ether, self it would eat her. Either way, she just figured it's fate. Gaining weight, puts lots of makeup on face. Hiding the pain, hiding the shame, not knowing that she was a victim of hate, that she was a victim of rape, that it wasn't her fault that she's great. Stop running from greatness, baby girl, wake up, take up your baggage and walk with me to a new place where love is free, to a paradise that brings you back right and sings you the life of a queen. Come on home to your seraphim wings. Do you know what it's like to be alone? To face all your problems and to solve them on your own. To hate yourself and hide a secret no one knows, cause you were just a little girl, little heart turned into stone. On. You don't like a soldier, I march. Hiding my secret is becoming art. Hardly at home cause I'm running the streets. My left hand to B, right hand to C. Hearing begins destruction to me. No word from my body, so body is free. No love in my heart for those who love me, because she's afraid of abandonment. He tries to love me, the life I refuse. No man in this whole world couldn't do. The pain of abuse, the sorrow, the bruise, the harder I lose, the harder the noose that invisibly chokes me. When he gets closely running, he don't seem to even know me. Nobody told me, nobody holds me. No one works hard enough for my love, so I can never see myself being in love. And this is something I will never free of. I'll never forgive those heathens for this drug that they gave me called hatred, self-mutilation. Why didn't I say it? Why didn't I say it? I hate him. Now guys wonder why it's so hard today to run that big punch. She didn't want to be player, but crushing her heart was the secret. While crushing the duck, it just seemed to appease it. Now I'm lost and I'm broken and screaming. Therapy and I'm finding a reason. They say everything happens in seasons. Maybe we'll love ourselves queens again. Do you know what it's like to be alone? To face all your problems and to solve them on your own? Much too young to learn the meaning of our strong. We were all just little girls, little hearts turned into stone. I hope you understand that you are not a product of your past. I hope you understand that you are not a product of your past. I hope you understand that you are not a product of your past. I hope I understand that I am not a product of my past.
Well, thanks for that, Pinky. It's awesome to hear your work. Just before we move on to a point that you made, you said you talked about collective experience. Tell us where you work and who you work with, please.
Sure. So obviously I work with Lifespan.
And besides that, yeah.
Yeah. To create awareness on the situation. I also work for Pedro Albizu Campos Puerto Rican High School in Humboldt Park. So I teach creative writing there, and that's another way for me to help young people kind of find their voices and just community centers everywhere. People have me come out and perform. I'm actually starting the PINQY project now, where I go into high schools and share my story and then encourage them and show them how I'm a success story no matter what happened to me, and how they can also do the same. And just to show them a positive role model in hip hop, but also a woman in hip hop that's not degrading herself or anything like that. So.
Awesome. And I like I said, I really like that point you made about collective experience, and how a lot of women and men have suffered sexual abuse, but domestic violence, unfortunately, tends to be a problem mainly of men against women. And you reach out into the community and you work with different organizations, but you also work to inform people. How does that work, Olivia?
Well, we do a variety of things. For example, we'll go out into community groups if we're asked to do so, and talk to everyday individuals about these protections and these benefits that they're eligible for, not just in the immigration context, but also in terms of divorces, orders of protection, custody matters. We also work with organizations and trainings. A lot of individuals work with advocates first before they reach an attorney. And so it's always important for advocates to be fully informed about the protections that are out there. And so we do some training as well. We partner with other organizations to put on conferences or workshops for the community, for other individuals.
Tell me about what happens in those trainings, or how do you empower people to help others come out of this?
I mean, I think information is a very powerful tool, and so if we're able to provide them that information and that practical experience that they may come across, that's always very useful, because then they go on to their own communities or organizations and assist individuals in their own way. And
then once they go through those trainings, they're able to carry out this work, right? But if they have legal questions, how does that work? I mean, because this is can become a complex matter, right?
Sure. I mean, we can't give legal advice to someone who's not our client and who we don't know all the facts, of course. But we do field calls from individuals who may have some questions about, where can I refer this individual, or just in general terms, what is out there in terms of protections or benefits for individuals. And so we get a lot of calls every week from other agencies, just kind of wanting to talk through things so that they can appropriately refer an individual, whether it's to us or to another agency.
Okay, and you step in those moments and provide some of that advice, or?
Yeah, we provide general information and safety planning and different places people can go for more assistance. Lifespan's very unique in that we don't have strict guidelines for who we can assist.
Okay.
If somebody maybe has a job but is, with 4 or 5 children and isn't making ends meet, we're able to serve them even though they may not technically be under the poverty guidelines. Like Olivia said before, domestic violence unfortunately reaches all areas, all incomes, all genders, and all races. And so Lifespan's very unique in the fact that we try to reach to as many people as we can and not have strictures on what their immigration status is or what their, language barriers may be. We try to really reach all of those.
That sounds like awesome work. Now, I'm curious, this is all I think PINQY's a great example of that. This is all very, in some sense, personal work, and we're running out of time, but I'm curious as to some moments through your work in Lifespan where you've made a difference. I mean, it may be huge, maybe small, but I'm curious about those stories as well, because I'm sure that's what keeps you working on this and not just the office work. So, Megan, please.
I have, many victories that I'm very proud of. One client particularly came to this country from, I won't say exactly where, but from a different country and had no family, no friends, no support. She lost her job, she developed cancer and wasn't able to, provide for herself. Her husband was emotionally and physically abusive to her and her children. And when she came to Lifespan, she didn't even know, what a divorce was in this country, what it meant. We were able to get her housing. We were able to get her a very well-paying job. We were able to get her divorced, full custody of her child, an order of protection for over 4 years while I worked on the case.
Wow.
So basically she went from complete isolation to complete empowerment, and that for me is the biggest victory.
That sounds amazing. Olivia?
I think for my clients, because immigration is such an important part of their lives, because they're here undocumented, and it's such a big fear that paralyzes them, when they're able to have even just the first step of maybe a work permit, and that will eventually lead to something more permanent. To them, you know, sometimes to hear them on the phone, you know, just give a little scream or something because they got this. I think that's what, you know, always keeps me going and reminds me of that final goal, that, you know, there's a light at the end of all that they've been through. And that's just one step in their way to empower themselves.
Okay, sounds great. And PINQY, we've heard a lot from you, but what do you hope to achieve through your art? Very quickly, we're almost out of time.
Sure. I just want to show students that, and you know, not only students or my students, but just young people, that they do have a voice. And if more of us start speaking about these things that are going on, and the more educated we get about them, we can make a change in our communities and in our own personal lives as well.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time, but thank you so much for coming out today to share a lot about your work and your stories.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Perspectivas Latinas is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Perspectivas Latinas for local issues and concerns every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.